So welcome to ArtSpeak University. We have been going through the ArtSpeak core values. There are 6 of them. We start foundationally at this is about people. That is our foundational core value. It is our why. We do this for people because there are people that need to be reached, because our clients are people too, and they are out there reaching people, and we get to come alongside them and partner with them. And this is for them too. Even when those clients are stressed, are particular, are in a hurry, they are people too. We are people. This team is made out of people. You are a people. And this is about you as well. We want to create a context here, a place where we can do meaningful, important work, but we can also thrive in the process and to be healthy and be in a context where we can set boundaries and move forward in life. So the how, the rest of the core values are really the how. That's the why. The rest are the how. So secondly, gratitude is our operating system. We just spent half or more of state-of-the-art sharing gratitudes with each other, and that is very intentional. We share gratitudes at the beginning of all of our meetings, and that is a way for us to, as a team, to celebrate one another, to remind ourselves that we are not alone, that we are on a team and we get to work together, and that other people around us are doing wonderful things too, and very often doing wonderful things for us. And we can express gratitude in that moment to shift our brains into a ventral nervous system place where we are most creative and most productive and able to work well with each other. Third, empathetic honesty is our paradigm for communication. We are essentially a communication company. We are helping people communicate well, and empathy is the foundation for all effective communication. That is the foundational paradigm for our messaging and branding efforts, and any of our marketing efforts is understanding who it is we're talking to, what they hope for and dream and fear, so that we can talk to them about those things, about things that will help for them. That's where the honesty comes in. We're not going to use that empathy to manipulate. We are going to communicate the truth. And we do that with our clients. We do that with the people out there. We do that with each other. But for today, we are hopping into confident humility. And I'm going to share my screen here. Confident humility, which is the next step. These are building on each other. Empathetic honesty, that's the foundation of our communication. Confident humility comes out of that. And I want to address a few possible misconceptions about these two words. One that I think is common is that you would think of these as two ends of a spectrum. Like humility on one end means you have low confidence, and being high confidence would mean you have low humility. And that is not true. That is not true. These are very related terms, but they are not opposites of each other. Not true. In fact, I would say one is required for the other. And so if we were to look at a graph here, maybe as you started learning something new, and at the very beginning, of course, your confidence is low and your humility is necessarily high, because you know that you don't know much about this yet. And then as you begin to build confidence, that sense of felt humility may actually decrease, until at a certain point, as you get deeper and deeper into this area of competence, you realize, wow, there's a lot more to know about this than I originally thought. And now that humility begins to grow, you begin to realize how nuanced all of this is, how much more you have to grow, and everything else out there. And your humility actually begins to grow. You may be familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is where this is the principle that has now a scientific name for the fact that people who are not very good at something tend to think that they're the best. Where when someone begins to learn about something, they know just enough, but not enough to know how much they don't know yet. And so this graph then plots this confidence they get to. But the next phase of that journey, as you progress in learning something, say when you start learning something new, sometimes at the very beginning, you feel like you're making fantastic progress because it's all new and you're learning this so fast and you're picking it up. And that's where you feel like, oh yeah, I'm great at this. But at a certain point, you begin to realize, oh, these things that I thought were this way, actually there's way more nuance to that. And you begin to see the mountains of other things there are to know about this skill, this area of knowledge, and your confidence plummets. And maybe you've experienced it. When I first started doing this, when I first started doing branding and graphic design, and I was doing that on my own, I knew, one, I hadn't gone to school for that. Didn't have a degree in marketing or branding or design or any of that. And so I was just out there on my own. And at a certain point, you feel like I am totally an imposter. I am totally making this up as I go along. I don't know if I'm actually good at this at all. And congratulations, that's the imposter syndrome. So if you sense that at all, if at any point in your life you've gone along and maybe on this team and have had that thought that I don't belong here, I don't really know what I'm doing, congratulations. That means you're actually progressing along your competence to the level where now you know that there's a lot more to learn, but it actually speaks to what you have learned. Because part of the principle here is that you're always looking down the road. You're always looking at what comes next. And you judge yourself by where you want to be. And so if you're climbing up this ladder, it always feels like, yeah, I can see now a little bit further down the road and how much more there is to know, how much better I want to be at, and I'm not that great yet. That's where that imposter syndrome comes from. But if I can come back to this, confidence is not the same as pride. And humility is not the same as low self-esteem. I think we can define it this way. This is my favorite definition of these terms. Confidence means I know that I have value. Now, that's not a comparison. That's independent from how much value that person has, or that person has, or that person has. Because that's where pride comes in. Pride says it's got to be a comparison. Pride says, I am better at this than that person. I am not as good at this as that person. Pride necessitates this comparison between me and somebody else. Confidence is independent of that comparison. Confidence simply says, I have value. Conversely, humility is not about thinking less of myself. In fact, I would say humility has nothing to do about what you think about yourself. Humility has everything to do about what you think about others. Confidence says, I have value. Humility says, you have value. I have value, and I understand that everyone else has value too. And so in that paradigm, confidence actually leads to humility. Because what happens when you don't have confidence? What happens when you are questioning your own value in a situation? that's where that pride kicks in, that comparison kicks in. If you find yourself in a context where you do not feel confident in your value, that's when you can become defensive. That's when you want to compare yourself with others and say, oh, well, I did this better than they did, therefore I have value. Or to point out flaws in other people. If you find yourself in that place, and it happens to all of us, where you're looking at others and you're finding flaws over there, it's because you're trying to convince yourself that, oh, I have value. But that leads to tension. That leads to defensiveness. That leads to separation. Whereas when you get to that point where you can stand in your own value, that then allows you to acknowledge and celebrate the value in everybody else. It's no longer a comparison. You no longer have to be defensive about something. You can let that go and say, oh yeah, maybe I did make a mistake. Great, I still am sure of my value, so I can address this mistake as separate from my own identity. I can separate my work that I'm doing from my value as a person. And so this is important because it leads to calm confidence. So confident humility is our core value, and calm confidence is a foundational ArtSpeak habit. Calm confidence is our best tool for dissolving tension. I'll put this in the context of working with a client. So say, for example, we have worked hard on a project. We've put in the hours, we've ideated, we've contracted, we've come up with some solutions, and we've presented it to the client, and the client does not like it. The client is not a fan, they're not impressed, and we go into that call, we go into that context. If we don't have confidence in our value at that moment, when the client begins to share their critiques, their dissatisfaction, then we become defensive. Then we start fighting back against that. We start pushing back against those critiques. And that's actually a cue to the client that, oh yeah, there is a problem here. There is a problem. And now their fear that they already had, that they're not going to get what they wanted, goes up. And that escalates the tension even more. But if instead we're able to come into that conversation with calm confidence, and the client's saying, oh, I don't like this, this isn't what I thought I was going to get. But instead, we have confidence in our value and our value as a company, our value as a team. If we're able to separate ourselves from this particular work, then we can say, oh, interesting, tell me more. We can stay calm, and that communicates to the client like, oh, there's not a problem here. We can find a solution. This allows you to remove yourself from feeling attacked and say, okay, let's separate the task at hand and the problem, put that over here. And now we can work together with the client to solve the problem rather than being in conflict with the client about our work. So that works for a client context. It works honestly in any kind of context where there's tension in the conversation. It works with a teammate. It works with family and friends. If you can come into the situation with calm confidence, you can help diffuse that situation, because emotions are contagious. Unfortunately, as much as we try to resist it, I know that when I'm stressed, if I come home to my family with that stress, even if I feel like I'm doing a really good job of masking it, my family picks up on it. My son, even when he was really little, it was so clear. If I came home stressed, even though I was trying my best to put all of that aside, he would pick up on it and he would act different. And it would spread to him and to my wife and to others. It's also true on this team or any context you're in. If you are under stress, if you are anxious, it is contagious. If you can present calm confidence, though, you can help bring everybody's stress levels down and help everybody feel more calm and confident. So when you're in those conversations, you can know that your value does not come from the outcome of this situation. If you can get to that point, that you have that confidence in yourself outside of this task, this situation, then you're able to approach that without that tension, without that escalation. You can also be confident that there are solutions, even if you don't know what they are yet. If you're in those conversations with a client where the tension has raised and there is a problem that you've identified, you don't have to know what the solution is in that moment. You can, but if we're able to present confidence that there are solutions, we'll work together to find them, and you could come back to the team and work together to find a solution that we can come back to the client with, then that's a solution-oriented response. You can also be curious. This is my favorite technique for when I'm working with a client and I'm getting surprising feedback. I thought they would love this. They don't. I love to lean in and say, oh, interesting. Tell me more about that. I think that in itself communicates confidence. That communicates a leaning in to say, okay, we can work together to figure this out. And this was not an expected outcome. I think that helps communicate that normally people like what we said. It's an expression of confidence. Yeah, that's great, Alex. Sure, we can explore that. And our job, of course, is to listen closely at that point to say, okay, the humility part of this says maybe we missed something. I'm confident in the value that I have to bring, but the humility says there could be things we missed. And you, client, have a perspective that we don't necessarily have. You have contact with the people that you're trying to reach more than we do. You know your city, your town, your church, your organization. And so we listen closely. We offer an open hand for the value that we've offered. And finally, you could grow your emotion capacitor. Right now, we're celebrating Corey's emotion capacitor here. If you're familiar with capacitor in electronics, a capacitor is a component that takes an uneven flow of electricity and helps even out the troughs and valleys into a more consistent stream of electricity. And if you can grow your own emotion capacitor so that there's a delay between your response and the emotions that you first feel when when that stress comes in, when our fear comes in, you're able to take that in without responding immediately and can present that calm confidence in the meantime. Then you're able to handle these conversations better. We've talked in the past, we've used the illustration of your bucket. There's some things you could do to expand your capacity there. And if you imagine yourself carrying around a bucket of water, everything that adds to your stress levels in life, you could imagine that as water in your bucket. So, under normal circumstances, your workload, that adds to your bucket. There's a global pandemic, that adds to your bucket. There's relational stress or home stress or work stress, all of that adds to your bucket. You need to understand that and be realistic with yourself that if there's a lot going on in your life, even just temporary physical things like you're tired today, you haven't eaten in a while, you haven't eaten enough today, you haven't had coffee today, just calculate that into your bucket. Because obviously as that bucket fills up, once it gets to the top, it doesn't take much of a bump for that water to start splashing out. So mind your bucket and do what you can to expand your capacity Simple things like getting enough sleep at night. Easier said than done, I understand. Doing things like prayer, meditation, take a break, build your sense of confidence in a situation. All of these help increase your emotional capacity. So how do you build confidence? I'm going to invite Jason to jump in at any time. He mentioned he had some thoughts, but I've been plowing ahead. So as I mentioned before, if you've ever felt a sense of imposter syndrome, that's an indication that you're actually growing in confidence. But it's also an indication that your negativity bias is at work, and you're looking around at the things that you know that you don't know yet. You're looking at the skill level that you want to have and know that you're not there yet. But that's because you're looking ahead at that curve. But if you want to build your confidence, take some time to also look behind you at that curve. One of my favorite things to do when I was developing as a designer would be to go back and look at the work I had done a year or two before. And the more that I would cringe at my work from a couple years ago, I learned to celebrate that, to say, oh, that means I've grown that much in 2 years. I've got that much better. I've improved. When we take a moment to review how we're doing, we tend to focus on the things where we wish we had done better. But we need to also take time to review our wins, to celebrate what went well, to celebrate the things that we did do and did accomplish. And you may have to do that intentionally. You may have to take time to intentionally say, I'm going to take a moment, I'm going to celebrate the wins from today or from this past week, celebrate what happened well. And you could do that on a small time scale. And I would encourage you to also do that on large time scales. Before getting ready for this teaching today, I reviewed the last time I taught on this topic. And it was interesting because I used to keep a journal on an online journal. I would log in online and I would journal about what was going on. And I don't keep up with that journal anymore, but I still have that account, and it will send me periodically little reminders saying, here's what you wrote X years ago. And the last time I taught on this, I had just such a reminder from 4 years previous, so about 5 years ago now. And in that entry, I was journaling about everything that was going on in my life at the moment. And frankly, it was a disaster. I had taken on one of the biggest web development projects that we had done, and I was trying to do it all myself, which was a terrible mistake, and it was going sideways fast. My wife had become very, very sick. So sick, in fact, that she couldn't even live in the house we were living in. So she was living with her folks in Oklahoma, and I was trying to fix our house because it was full of mold behind the walls. And I had no money to fix my house. I didn't have the know-how to fix my house. And I was trying to figure out how to get the tools I needed, how to learn the different things I needed to learn, and how I was going to find the energy and time to do all of the work that it would take to fix that house so that either we could sell it or Amy could move back in. And meanwhile, we had everything going on at ArtSpeak, new clients that were stressing me out. It felt like an insurmountable time. But I can look back at that and see how I came through all of that. And part of it is, it wasn't like, oh, I powered through, look how great I am, I'm confident. But I could see how other people around me helped me overcome the obstacles that I had. And even I would say the hand of God and his work coming in, people that came in and helped. Somebody came in, gave us a place to live where we could move back in together. Some people came and helped me figure out how to fix the house, and people came in at ArtSpeak and helped move that along. And so that builds a sense of confidence to be able to look back and say, yeah, there were problems, but I overcame them. I came through that. And so now if I'm facing problems here and now, I have more confidence to say, okay, that may be a problem, but it's not insurmountable. We can come through that. And I can approach that situation with more calm confidence. We express gratitude to others. We've already talked about that. You can also express gratitude to yourself. You can celebrate what we've done and express gratitude inwardly so that we're not beating ourselves up all the time. As a little hack here, a small hack. I love small psychological hacks. I've got somatic feedback on this. I've talked before about my favorite habit of smiling, where as you smile, your brain will start to try to figure out good reasons why you might be smiling. And the thing about it is it will find some good reasons why you might be smiling. So if you need help generating some gratitude in your own life, try just sitting there and choosing to smile for a while and find if that doesn't help you find things to be gratitude about. But for confidence, like say, for example, you're going into a call that you're gonna need some confidence for. You can actually just stretch out, make yourself take up as much space as you can. And that has a similar effect. They've studied this. It's like psychologically established. That will help you generate a sense of confidence for that moment. So that might look ridiculous if other people are around to see you, but if you're just preparing for a Zoom call, that might be a great little 3-minute break before that call. Just stretch out, make yourself as big and as expanded as possible, and go into that call with some extra confidence. Finally, confidence is not a solo endeavor. Your confident humility is contagious. Not just the calm confidence, but the confident humility. For example, if you don't feel the need to, this allows you to celebrate others. And as you celebrate others, they grow in their confidence. And as they grow in their confidence, they become less defensive and more generous with their praise, and they will celebrate you in return. Because confidence is not just about self-confidence, it's also about your total confidence, your total context. Really, one of the key differentiators between teams that work well together and those that don't is the concept of psychological safety. And that is really what we're talking about when we talk about this confident humility, where we are able to affirm each other and not get defensive, so that we create a place where it is okay to get overwhelmed and ask for help, where it is okay to make a mistake, because you know that you're not going to get an earful from someone, you're not going to get kicked off to the team because you made a mistake. Like, it's okay to make a mistake, which is great, because in contexts where there's not that psychological safety, mistakes are still going to happen. They're just going to get swept under the rug and hidden. We would rather be able to address that as a team, where we all feel safe. We all know that it's okay. It's okay. We'll work together to find solutions. So do this for you, but do this for your teammates. Create safety for your teammates. Create a place where they can grow in their confidence, where they can feel that safety and work together with calm confidence. Jason, I filled up almost the whole time here.
You did a great job, Kirk. I don't know if I just wanted to just maybe conclude with just one thought. When, there's lots of other habits and hacks for growing in confidence. I'd love to share those. As I've had an opportunity to be able to one-on-one personally coach several individuals from, some just starting and young to those mature and with lots of influence. One of the things that has been a consistent that I've been shocked by is this struggle, that the confidence level just never feels like it is where it should be. And so one of the recommendations that I have had almost everybody I've coached at some point, and I didn't even go into it with a framework. I have a framework now that I'll be coaching people through as we roll this out. But one of the things, and I've taught this lesson here, so I'll just end it in short. We can circle back later. It's just the thought that you are pro. And I've encouraged people to take a sticky note and write down, I am pro, on that sticky note, and put it somewhere you're going to look at. It could be the bathroom mirror, it could be your computer, it could be your desk, could be your car dashboard, wherever you are. I am pro. Now it sounds cheesy, but it's, and some of you will, even me saying to do that, you think, ah, yeah, and then your hand gets shaky. You're like, I'm not so sure. Am I really? Here's the deal. You can look this up. I have the definition of professional is somebody who gets paid to do what they do. They're engaged in a career field. They're engaged in the market. I know that you are paid to do what you do because Kirk and I pay you to do what you do. So our clients pay us to do what we do. Therefore, you are pro. Okay. If you needed somebody else's permission, I dub thee pro. Okay. So now you can write it down. And you just need to remind, sometimes we need to remind ourselves, like, we are professional. And I'll end with this. Like, if doctors can practice medicine, that's it. That's all I've got. If they're allowed to practice medicine, I think it's okay for us to practice graphic design or practice web building or practice consulting or practice ministry, right? Like, they're practicing medicine. So they're a little bit, like life and death in the balance, and they're just practicing. But we would call them pro. And I think you guys are pro. I think you're super pro. Our clients think you're super pro. They love the team result. I think we're better together than we could as an individual. But I think, and that we can, again, we'll circle back another time to talk more about boosting that confident humility. There's lots of hacks. I think it's super important. Kirk, you did a great job. Confidence says, I have value. Humility says, so do you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kirk. Thank you, Jason. Great stuff.